the New World Order, and the conspiracy to cover it up, the shadow government's agenda in keeping us asleep, the injustice, catastrophe, and the global chaos are all indications that we are living in a period of time known as the end of days. Are you looking for answers? They are out there, and together we will find them as we navigate through End Times Now with Bree.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of End Times Now with Bree. I'm Bree. Here, the topic of conversation that I'm usually having between me, myself, this microphone in your ears is the end times. And next time you hear someone say, hey, wouldn't it be cool to live in Bible times? Just tell them to look outside, okay? Just saying. Also, real quick, next week, if you don't hear from me, I'm still alive, hopefully, God willing. What I'm saying is it's not because some men in black suits decided to, take me on a little vacation or whatever. We're just going to have a ton of stuff going on with this move. But I'm still going to try and push something out for you guys. So just want to let you know. Also, thank you so much for all of the support. I can so feel the love, and I really appreciate all of the prayers and encouragement. You guys, it means so much to me. It really helps me to maintain my focus on the high stakes. You know, these are some high stakes out there. And per usual, I am asking people if they have a story they'd like to tell to share and get in touch with me. But I'm lining people up right now. Hopefully I will get to do the first one tomorrow. This guy's got an amazing story. But I'm looking for some people. So God is doing some amazing things. But if you have something to say, I really want you to reach out. I'm looking for people with cool stories. Maybe, you've got a debate you'd like to get into. I am game for it. So don't be shy. Get in touch. Or you know what? Maybe there are some hard things that you're going through and, you either don't understand it or maybe you just need someone to chat with. You don't know me from Adam, but reach out anyways, because we don't realize how our stories can help someone else. We don't ever know who's watching or who's listening. And I'm just going to say it. What if you have something that you can share that needs to be heard by someone who's teetering on the edge? What if you could share that and, I guess in a sense, save them from something detrimental, or at the very least, let them know that they're not alone. We can even do it anonymously. That makes you feel more comfortable. But I guess what I'm saying is just please connect. Okay. Also, feel free to throw out any questions, ideas, prayer requests, pretty much anything. That's what I'm saying. Anything. Excuse me. I'll be sure to make sure that I'm sure to put all of the links in the description. But in general, you can find me under End Times Now with Bree on all the major platforms. I also did a Telegram channel, which I feel like a complete dum-dum, because I had it set to private, So I'm sitting there going, okay, so I'm the only one that's looking at my messages. Anyway, I did that because I follow this guy. He lives in Israel. His backyard is basically Megiddo, and it's Amir Sarfati. I don't know if you have heard of him. If you listen to Chad and Sherry, Rashid, on his episode, he mentioned Amir, and I like to get a lot of information from him just because he's there. He's in Israel, and among other sources too. But I feel like even though I don't agree with everything he says, I feel like he gives a pretty clear-cut and concise interpretation of what's going on. So that's a lot of what I've been sharing, because I don't really believe that we're getting the truth from mainstream media, if you haven't noticed by now. Okay, so the last thing is just a little public service announcement. Obviously, getting these messages is ultimately the most important thing to me. However, downloading the Spreaker app to listen to these episodes really helps us out because they're the ones that put it out to all the other platforms. And so by using them, it gives us a boost. And if you're not listening in order, you're going to miss a lot. So there's a lot of significant and pertinent information that I just really think will help you understand each consecutive episode. So if you're popping in right now, stop it and then go back to the beginning because you'll have a much better understanding as each episode moves forward. Just think of it like we're telling a really, really long story. And it just happens to like apply to all of our lives, right? Talking is definitely not something that I lack in. So, there will be a lot of that. Just go back to the beginning and I'm sure I'll get to talking to you. I don't even know what I'm saying. Anyway, so going in order, just take it one step at a time. Now, without further ado, let's roll that beautiful bean footage. So today's question is, what in the World Economic Forum is going on? Okay, so if you have been living under a rock, that's okay. The World Economic Forum has been meeting. They're done now. But I just have to point out how fitting the special address was given by Javier Malei, who is now the president of Argentina, especially after, putting out the last episode, which was part 3 of the 10 Kings prophecy. So let's remember that we owe the fulfillment, at least in my interpretation of that fulfillment of the BRICS 10 nations to him because he backed out, essentially, in my opinion. That's why the BRICS 10 nations have fulfilled that prophecy because he is no longer 11. But what did he say? Oh, this man, let me tell you. For 30 minutes, this rock star of a dude literally started out by warning the Western nations, okay, by saying that we're basically being duped into a socialistic society. And I thought it was hilarious because literally when he's sitting there and Darth Schwab he's like going on to introduce him and this man, he's just got this cheeky smile on his face. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so good. And so then he goes on to say that the Western leaders have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we like to call collectivism. He also says that capitalism is literally the only way to avoid mass poverty. He systematically dismantles their Marxist socialistic agenda, which I thought was awesome because he used none other than math, like genius, and also, of course, the historical statistics that, you can't argue with. And then he follows it up with basically calling bureaucrats useless. Like, not literally, of course. He didn't literally say the word useless. In fact, he didn't literally say, well, he literally said some of this stuff, but I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, because I already talk too much as it is. But he said that their ideas result in bureaucrats that are in control and have high positions while sitting on their behinds in big offices and literally have contributed nothing to society. By this time in his speech, you guys, I am like doing a dance. Okay. Just saying. I am just like all for it. So then he goes on to call out the feminist movements. And I'm just going to say, as a female, I agree with this man. But he calls them out and he says how they're contributing to this like downward spiral, and they are. Okay. And I'm really sorry for any women out there that I am offending, and this is for another episode. Okay. But I'm just saying it's true. All right. It's totally true. But then he goes on to call out the idea that climate change, which this whole thing, climate change, it's like this was their thing. Okay. They just posted climate change on like everything. But anyway, he goes on to call out this idea of climate change and how it's based on the whole, humans hurt the planet narrative, and that their solution of population control and abortion is harmful and has a stronghold in most of the institutions and universities across the Western world. Wow. Side note here, I was listening to this interview, which if you go to my Twitter, my X, whatever, and you look for the interview with Dr. Willie Soon, you will see what I'm talking about, okay? This interview was with this diamond of a man named Dr. Willie Soon, and he did an interview with Tucker Carlson, which I'll say was absolutely glorious. Like, my favorite part was when this super science smart dude, okay, says with his Asian accent, CO2 ain't gonna do nothing. with regard to the environment. Like, I died. CO2 ain't gonna do nothing. It's like, what? Is this my neighbor? Anyway, instantly I just wanted to be friends with Dr. Willie Soon and like go eat a cheeseburger with the man. But what in this video, there was a blurb about the TED Talk that Bill Gates did back in 2010. And according to good old factcheck.org, it was completely taken out of context. Okay. That's what they said. Well, I went to go listen to that original TED Talk, and you want to know what I found, you guys? Oh, I found that he said what that whole suspicious conspiracy Facebook video thing said. He said, isn't that crazy? What did he say exactly? You've probably heard of this, which is cool, but just bear with me. I just thought it was really funny that Fact Check said he didn't say it, but I literally went on there and he totally said it. And this is what he said. He goes, first, we've got population. Okay. So they're talking in this TED Talk. He's talking about CO2 and how we have to get the number of CO2 down to zero, which in and of itself, like, I'm just sitting there going, okay, first of all, that's never been a thing because plants, right? Unless he wants to just go back to the whole like formless void of water, we could maybe do that. But I kind of feel like CO2 was there too. I mean, I don't know, I don't know, but that's just not a thing. Getting CO2 down to zero, getting carbon down to zero is not a thing, Mr. Gates. Okay. I don't know how you got all your money, but I'm pretty sure that never mind. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. So first he goes on, he says, first we've got population. I feel like that's how he talks. The world today has 6.8 billion people. Now that was back in 2010. That's headed up to about 9 billion people. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 to 15%. What? What did I just hear? I'm sorry. So literally, we just heard him say, what he said in that stupid video, his plan to get CO2 to zero, we need to decrease the population. And we can do that with new vaccines, healthcare, and reproductive health services. So instantly, I'm like, what? I don't know. So Factcheck comes back with this, which this is where I started cracking up. So they said that portion of Gates's talk has spawned a false narrative that has persisted over the years that argues Gates was calling for the killing of millions of people by using vaccines, a narrative that Facebook video again revisits. It's clear, however, that Gates was referring once again to his belief that improving health and reducing child deaths, including through vaccines, can have the effect of limiting future population growth. What? Like, oh, I gotta know what these people are smoking. What are you doing? Oy, oy, oy. Like, I cracked up because I literally don't understand how that makes any sense. How? Okay, so let me say this, and I'm going to say it as eloquently as I can, and I'm going to try real hard not to have an attitude when I do it. But dude, really? Improving health. Go with me on this here. Go with me. Improving health and reducing child deaths, including through vaccines, in order to limit the future population growth, is the literal definition of an oxymoron. Yeah, in every sense of the word, the morons. Okay? Not that that's what a moron is. But here's the other thing. There's that word effect. So there's the word affect and effect. And the word they use here is effect with an E. And that's where I sing the song, one of these things is not like the other, right? Do you remember that song from when we were babies? Oh, yeah, y'all. Okay, so y'all are having an effect, all right. I kind of see the lightning, there should be lightning in your brain. There should be, but there isn't. It's quite special. It's a special effect you guys are having. Like that thing in your skull. I'm sorry. That was not nice. Was it? But seriously, anyway, back to my guy, Javier. He wraps the whole thing up by quote, inviting the Western world. I love this. He's inviting the Western world to join him in returning to a path of prosperity, economic freedom, limited government, and unlimited respect for private property. And listen to what he says in concluding this masterpiece. First of all, he literally addresses, quote, all business people here and not here, but following from all around the world, and says, quote, do not be intimidated either by the political caste or by parasites that want to live off the state. Do not surrender to a political class that only wants to stay in power and retain its privileges. You are social benefactors. You're heroes. You are the creators of the most extraordinary period of prosperity we've ever seen. Let no one tell you that your ambition is immoral. If you make money, it's because you offer a better product and a better price, thereby contributing to general well-being. Don't surrender to the advance of the state. The state is not the solution. The state is the problem. You are the true protagonists of this story, and rest assured, from this day forward, Argentina is your unconditional ally. Thank you very much, and long live freedom. Damn it, is what this man said. Okay? End quote. After, damn it. Okay. So I'm not joking when I say that I heard that and felt like I could hear Freddie Mercury in the background singing "We Are the Champions." Okay. I was fist pumping on my couch all by myself. Like, listen, Javier, have your people call my people. Okay. I want to buy you some dinner. Although it's going to have to be after I move out of like this place and into my mom's basement. And then I'll probably have to save some money because I'm broke, but that's okay. Burger King, there's a Burger King down the road. We can get something to eat. But like, I'm serious. I would put this man on my shoulders and run him around a stadium. Both guys. I would put Dr. Willie Soon and Javier Malei on my shoulders and run them both around a stadium. Okay, singing "He's a Jolly Good Fellow." Both, they're jolly good fellows. Okay, so maybe I wouldn't because literally I can't because I'm almost going to be a half a century old. But rest assured, I really want to do that for these guys. I'm saying he basically just gave them all the middle finger without giving them the middle finger, and then told them to like kiss off and scratch without telling them to kiss off and scratch. And you guys, he invited everyone else with a brain to do it too. Like, that right there. You know, I love this guy. I mean, and I love Peyton Manning. I love Peyton Manning too. He's my favorite football player in the history of football players. But I think I may have just done the unthinkable and added a politician to my list of famous people that I love, which is pretty much just Peyton Manning and Jesus, because they're both famous. But the other people that I love are semi-famous, and most people haven't even heard of them, so I'll leave them off that list. But I'm just saying, this was just amazing. So, like, knowing, you know, my life, like, after this stunt, they'll like come up with something about how his house is like a replica of like Ed Gein, and like he has lampshades made from human epidermis and collects women's shoes and whatever. And if you're wondering how I know this, it's because I have this weird thing in that if I don't understand something, I fixate on it. And that subject just happens to include serial killers. Okay? Just saying. I don't understand them. Can't figure it out. So true crime is a thing. Actually, speaking of serial killers, Jeff Saturday, who happened to be Peyton Manning's center, okay, not a serial killer. So that totally came out wrong. But he does this thing for a prison fellowship. And this is something I've been wanting to get involved in for a really long time. But you need to have a pastor referral. And I don't really have that because most pastors don't really jive with me. So that all said, if anyone out there knows Jeff Saturday or how I can get in touch with him, please help a sister out. All right. So getting back to it, New World Order, y'all. They're keeping things spicy, right? Okay. So then we have a session on the BRICS. And here's their opening statement. They're like, okay, so in light of its expansion, BRICS will contain 46% of the world's population and 25% of global exports. That's huge. And its GDP will exceed that of the G7. And from what I understand, it's by like a lot. I could be wrong though. But as the bloc calls for united stand of emerging and developing countries, how will it forge consensus among its diverse members and contribute to the reshaping of the global geopolitical and economic landscape? Really? I don't think that's a thing, first of all. Just saying. So first, we have dude from the UAE, and he says in his verbal vomit that touts who the UAE is and that their goal is not just to benefit BRICS from a geoeconomic level, but also from a humanitarian. And of course, I laughed because humanitarian. Okay, Dubai. That's all I got to say. Dubai can totally relate to me for sure, right? So I'm excited about the UAE and its humanitarian level of benefits. Okay, what a brat. Anyway, and then comes dude in a tilted hat from South Africa. Like, honestly, I just wanted to reach through and like just flick him in the nose because, but I know that wouldn't be very Christian of me. So like, I decided that I would just pray that in Jesus' name, right? That Jesus brings him to his knees like that of Job. In Jesus' name, amen. Bless his heart. Freaking dude. Anyway, he had no idea. He had no idea what was going on. And really, I felt bad for the moderator because he couldn't really articulate an answer very well beyond the fact that he only knows the financials of the thing. Okay, so like he just kept on going back to the financials of what they have contributed. This was South Africa, by the way. And I'm not a fan right now. But that was all he did, was just talk about how he contributed money. And then we have China and India. All of them, by the way, speak on how awesome they are and that like they all gave a bunch of money to their central bank and that they all care about people all over the world, which is total and utter nonsense, except for India, maybe. But that said, that person on the panel that sounded like she knew what she was talking about was Her Majesty, ironic, from India. Whatever. And then we come to another panel. This panel, by the way, I'm just going to say this. I was expecting a lot more out of all of these things. I didn't watch all of them because I kind of felt like I felt like they're kind of like pointless and just, it's kind of like the jar, and you have the jar and then you have a whole bunch of big pebbles and then you have a whole bunch of little pebbles. Well, and I understand it's the little pebbles that fill the jar. Okay. But I was really more interested in the big pebbles that we're talking about here, because that's kind of where I feel like they show their face the most. Which actually, when you think about it, is probably a good reason to look at the little pebbles. Anyway. Okay, so we come to this next panel. Not next panel, but this other one. And it's the monetary policy. They called it all change, which is so predictive. All change. What's next for monetary policy? Which, why are these people making policies about this stuff? I mean, I just, okay. But then the subtitle is amid transformative changes and challenges in the global economy, the standard monetary policy toolkit is under scrutiny. No offense, but that's not new. Like, where have you guys been? How can central banks adapt? Love this. How can central banks adapt and innovate to ensure they remain effective stewards of the economy? Like, okay, how can they adapt? This is what they said, right? So how can they adapt and innovate to ensure that they remain effective stewards of the economy? So what they're literally saying is, how can we manipulate a plan in order to ensure that central banks remain in control of the economy? Like, think about that. What is the definition of a steward? The definition of a steward is a person responsible for supplies of food to a college, club, or other institution. A person is employed to manage another person's property, especially a large house or estate. Like, literally, that's what they're saying. How can we maintain control? And they literally refer to the financial system as the regime. So to me, that just is kind of ominous. But, they go on to talk about the rewiring of everything, including intelligence, and how they need to, quote, get the number of inflation right, which I understand inflation is important, okay? And that they shouldn't change anything because, quote, the poor people are paying it. And then they decided to slip in the mandate, right? Which, if you don't know what this is, it's the central banking system's way of regulating money based on risk. And they came out in October saying that they're not trying to tell banks how to lend their money, but that they should look at the borrower's carbon footprint and consider, drumroll, please, climate change for the win. Climate change so that I can borrow money. Okay. But I couldn't help but notice all of these people in the background of the panel, and like they're all sitting there and they've got like their hands their arms folded, and this one dude just had like this evil look on his face, like he was angry. They all just looked pissed. Like they were just, I'm like, okay, I hope they're checking all these people, like patting them down when they come in, because I could, Anyway, they go on to talk about AI, not on this panel, different panel, World Economic Forum. They go on to talk about AI, of course. They talk about the quote, governance. They in the middle of the debate, not debate, but in the middle of the conversation decided to change it from regulation to governance because it sounded better and more appropriate, she said. And so basically, they're talking about the governance and how they need to be able to predict what AI is going to do and where it's headed. And they throw out how they need to keep our rights in mind when they're doing this, which made me chuckle. Like that's so cute. And then came the subject of deep fakes and how there needs to be a law in place for this. And the reason, said Miss Thang from Singapore, by the way, that's not her name, is because it's stealing one's identity, and it's worse than having your data stolen, because a person is being presented in a manner that they did not intend, and that it's an assault on fact, which I thought was hilarious. And how does a society function when we can't tell what's real or fiction? Okay, well, I can see that point totally. Not that I agree with it, but here's my question. What makes you, quote unquote, you, meaning the elite, the correct authority on this? I'm just asking for a friend. I'm the friend. It's my question. Like, if someone is doing a deep fake, it's probably not going to be about me. It's probably not going to be about you either. Just saying. I mean, unless, of course, I all of a sudden stumble on something that I wasn't supposed to, and then like become the female version of Alex Jones and then expose you or your club, right? Just saying. Like, I don't think anyone's making a deep fake about me. So how about you just kind of stick to your survival of the fittest model at that point? And if someone falls for the deep fake, well, that means that they can't discern the truth, or and either they're going to have to learn a lesson from it, or they're asked to leave the sandbox. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not joking when I say that not 30 seconds. So like usually what I'll do is I'll, like if I'm researching something or if I'm watching a video, I'll take notes as I'm watching the video. And so that's where I ended that section, was leaving the sandbox. And I'm not kidding when I say that not 30 seconds after I paused the video to catch up on my dissertation of a script that I have to follow because of the fact that I have ADD and will literally leave the train station with the train and none of the passengers. Okay. So 30 seconds later, if that, it was probably even 15, she says that in order to regulate how AI is implemented responsibly, we should start with with advisory guidelines, sandboxes, pilots, is what she said. She said it. So basically what she's saying is that when enough people have been screwed over by this, because they didn't want to listen to the advisory guidelines, then we can go ahead and lay the smack down, and it will be the fault of all of the little people who didn't listen in the sandbox. Okay. Like, little side note here. Speaking of deep fakes, what do we think that the image of the beast is going to be anyway? Okay, think about that for a second. It's an image. Like an image, as in a JPEG or a hologram or a meme, for crying out loud. By that time, it could be a frickin' emoji. You know what I'm saying? Like a cartoon. A frickin' emoji. Gosh, man, these people. Anyway, I'll have to save that for another episode because it is important to understand that people like Sam Altman, who I don't know if you know who he is, but he's the CEO of OpenAI. He's speaking with guys like Bill Gates in ways that AI is changing, and in my opinion, can make a person pretty much break out in hives. Like it really makes me itchy. But literally, he talks about AI doing all these things, but that we can like customize it the way that we want to, and that it'll be able to know us and our data, our calendar, and how we like appointments booked, as well as connecting with outside data sources as well. But okay, so like, here's my thing. Forget about my calendar and how I like appointments booked. Okay, please. Like, I don't want these things to quote unquote know me. You know, he also talks about the autonomous factor of these things. And I'm just like, no, nay. I'm out. Because, here's the thing, right? If you listen to my last episode, you heard me talk about Batal and the Brookhaven lab. Remember that? The stuff these people are coming up with straight makes me twitch, yo. Like, it's no joke. So when we have the World Economic Forum talking about the quote unquote governance surrounding this stuff, we need to be paying attention, you guys. So, and it's so funny too, because they will they use words and language that I feel like it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But it's just like that Bill Gates video. Like, he literally said through vaccines, healthcare, and better abortions, basically is what he said, we can, better healthcare through vaccines, better healthcare. I don't get it. Anyway, so we're going to hit the thing, at least for me. This is the thing. Okay, so they go on to have a conversation with Isaac Herzog. And there he sits with a picture of baby Kafir Bibas, who just turned a year old as of yesterday. And I believe it was yesterday. It could have been the 17th, but I'm recording this as of the 19th. And he's still currently being held by Hamas. His mother and his brother were also taken. His father was in a completely different place. But he goes on to talk about how they're surrounded and that they're literally, this is what he says, quote, he said, literally fighting this fight for the universe, which I think that's kind of taken a little far, but just saying. And that if Israel was not there, Europe and America would be next. And you know what? He's right. He's right. In fact, I'm going to retract what I said about the universe in the sense that it's a spiritual thing, right? He goes on to say something that struck me, but I don't think he even knows how prominent of a statement this was. He says, quote, this war is something of an essential in the history of humankind. And sadly, he's correct, because this is a major player in what will finally bring us home. Okay? It didn't start here per se, but this is the beginning, I believe, of a ride that's going to just get faster. It's like being on a roller coaster, right? Since May of 1948, it was like we started going up that hill, and then on the morning of October 7th, we hit that point where we're at the top, and the momentum started to it starts to take us down, that first drop. And here's where we pray that we're strapped in, right? Because I think maybe there's going to be a loop or something. I don't know. And of course, Mr. Moderator, who acted like he was very, not sympathetic, but just, he made some comments about how Herzog has many times has been trying to call for peace and so on and so forth. And he recognized that. But he brings up the humanitarian aid and how there's 2 million people who are living under, quote, very tough conditions, and want to know what Herzog has to say about it. Now, here's the thing. So Hamas actually ended up stealing some of these trucks, and so the aid didn't get to them. And there's a reason why, and the reason why is because it has to, when it has to change hands, that's where it gets really sticky. But his answer in my eyes was very accurate. It was an accurate answer. He reflected on the fact that this organization, which I'll add, was not only funded by Iran, but he was kind enough not to throw the United States under the bus, because, I'm just saying, that where there's arms, there's the U.S. is involved somehow, right? If you don't know that, I'm sorry. I know that you might not like that, but our government has been involved with every war that has ever happened since our inception. In fact, I don't want to really get off topic here, but going back to Britain before we even broke off, that was a whole plot. Okay. And we'll get into another episode. It has to deal with the Freemasons and the New World Order and the Illuminati and all of that. But that's for another episode. However, okay. So going back, the reason for that is because of the roots. Okay. The whole agenda. And so we have to keep that in mind. That literally one day, all of these things, okay, so the U.S. is involved, Iran's involved, all these people are involved, and it's all part of the New World Order, and they're all doing it. They're calling war after war after war, just so that one day they can call peace. And I know that sounds nuts, but it's true. And I'm going to get into that in a different episode, because it's quite the spider web. I had a listener who reached out to me and wanted me to expound on that. And so it's not a simplistic answer, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw that one out there too. Anyway, I'm working on it. So Herzog goes on to talk about the fact that they've done what they can and that they hate the fact that when they go into literally every school or every house, they find things like missiles under the beds of children or arms being stored in schools that, you know, Hitler's Mein Kampf is commonplace, like it's a display on your coffee table or something. And let me just say this. My mom had a copy of Mein Kampf, and it wasn't because she was an anti-Semite, okay? It was literally because Hitler scared the crap out of her. And so she wanted to get to know her enemy a little better. And she literally believed that Hitler did not die. And you know what? I don't think he did either. Because even if he wasn't dead physically, the principality behind him remained. And it's hanging out right now with Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Iran, every other Nazi out there. Okay? But the fact is, billions of dollars were funneled into these organizations. The infrastructure of the tunnel system is massive. We're finding that out now if we're paying attention. And guys, I mean, when I say massive, like massive, okay? Herzog said taller than a New York subway system. That's very vast, okay? It's tall and it's vast, this thing. And he goes on to say that money had that money been spent above ground, it would have made the region so significant, not only globally, but also would have brought about peace. I mean, I don't necessarily see how, but okay. I mean, I'll take his word for it. I read the Bible though, and that's not what the Bible says. But the bottom line is that either they have a right to defend themselves or they don't. Okay, that's where we're at right now. Either they have a right to defend themselves or they don't. And here's the deal, guys. We can't be hypocrites. If that were the U.S., the end of the show would have come and gone. Okay, within reason. Because here I sit here and I think about all of the hostages that are still out there that we don't have, that are American citizens. But I digress. So, okay, so after they've tried all of these things, after they pulled all their troops out of Gaza in 2005, okay, they kept on bombing them, you know, so it never stopped. So everybody, you know, they keep on calling for peace, but it doesn't work. You know, they've pulled out and they keep on getting bombed. So, you know, what they have a right to defend themselves. If they have a right to exist, which they do, then they have a right to defend themselves. And if you don't believe that, then, you know, that's a whole nother issue. In fact, the Israeli government, so when they pulled out in 2005, the Israeli government offered a compensation package for the Israeli settlers who would voluntarily leave by August 15th of 2005. The settlers who refused to accept the government's package and voluntarily vacate their homes, they were evicted by Israeli security forces over the period of just several days. And so let me stop there and say this. Some of these people were already angry because, like, they had to leave their homes once already. Okay, when they left the Sinai Peninsula in the 80s. So I get it. Like, literally, as someone who has been uprooted over and over again, I get it. Okay. You know, and then I get it from a peacetime standpoint. So, you know, and let's also remember too that they have given back a ton of land that was actually deeded to them. You know, Gaza, the West Bank, like they gave back a ton of land. And I think that people forget that. So, by September 12th of 2005, all the residents and the associated security that were with those residents that were there to protect them were completely removed. And the eviction and the dismantlement there were 4 settlements in the northern West Bank. That was completed 10 days later. So roughly 8,600 Jewish settlers were relocated again after, the first time leaving the peninsula. And the Israeli government paid them to go. The Israeli government paid them to go. Not Iran, not Iraq, not, Turkey or any of these other places. Israel paid them to go, which is more than I can say for the Arab nations that told the Palestinians to leave in the first place. So let's remember that. They told the Palestinians, they said, you guys need to leave. We don't want you getting in the way of the military when we come to take care of the Jewish invasion issue. Okay. They were going to gather them all up and drop them into the Red Sea, the Mediterranean. Like, seriously, dude? So understand something. This war did not start in 1948, guys. While there were still Jews that were there from the beginning, most of them were dispersed. Okay. So, but they hadn't even come back yet. And the surrounding countries are already planning their disposal. I mean, let's be real. If you fed me a bunch of propaganda that told me to hurry up and leave so that I would be safe from your wrath as you dealt with these monsters, okay, that were headed my way, and I believed it. See, that's key, the belief of the lie. But if you told me that and then said that, you're going to take care of it. I can come back in a couple of weeks and everything will be fine. You're going to take care of it. And I listened only to realize that it was an empty promise. I'd be pissed too. Okay. I'm just saying, because now these monsters, quote, have taken over my home, and you promised to take care of me, and somehow along the lines that got forgotten about. But their hatred for these evil people that came in and took their homes, that has not, these evil monsters, right? That has not gone away. So we have to remember that this is supernatural. So, okay, so the moderator asks him, he says, what would you say to those that think that Israel let Hamas win the elections? And Isaac is all, okay, well, I understand the criticism, but it's become such a political issue. I don't want to allude to anything there, which, I totally understand that statement. He wasn't president when that happened, so I get it. And he says, I would simply say that we have to support those who are willing to extend a hand for peace to those who are willing to go with us to a brighter future. And then there was like this lone clapper in the background. Like it was eerie. I think maybe another person, maybe two, joined in. That's when it hit me. Okay. I was like, holy cows, dude, there it is. The trembling cup, the burdensome stone. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 2, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Like no one wanted to stand with him. That got me. That one got me. And so that brings me to my next point here. I received a question from a wonderful listener, and she made some really valid points that I'd like to address here. And let me tell you, I feel her pain because ultimately this whole thing is, in a fleshly sense, it's all about money. Okay? Literally, it's all about money at its core. But again, there is a spirit behind this. Her questions, not all of them were questions. More of them were more like, statements saying, why, I have a hard time with this. I have a hard time with the way that they're handling this and the fact that we've been giving them money and, all of this. And it's true, right? It's true. But then she sent me this article from a particular source. And most sources aren't exactly transparent, but this right here is where we have to dig in order to see if we can truly understand what the agenda really is, right? So this right here is a follow the money type of a statement, because this source and this article not only has ties to the Vatican, who are truthfully pro-Palestinian, the Pope in Iran, like they're tight. I'm just saying, they're tight. But the interviewee is a known anti-Semite, okay? And so instantly we see an agenda. We see a motive here, okay? So we need to tread lightly and really scrutinize the rhetoric, which is sad, by the way, that we have to do that. But, it is what it is right now. So anyway, he goes on to say, and this guy, oh gosh, his name. Okay, so this guy's name is, he's former ambassador to the United States, Chaz Freeman. And he goes on to say, he's the interviewee. He's a known anti-Semite, you guys. But instantly, right? So we see there's like this thing. So he goes on to say that not only did Israel's government know about the attack, but that it was actually led by the Israeli forces. That they killed their own people who were at the festival, and that's how the war started. So I'm going to read this excerpt to you real quick, and then we're going to talk about this. It's the myth of October 7th is what it's labeled. And this is what it says. The mainstream media tells us that the war in Gaza was triggered by the slaughter of Israeli citizens attending a music festival by the Islamic militia Hamas. Instead, it appears Israelis were killed by their own army following a secretive government doctrine known as the Hannibal Directive. Freeman points out how Israel's war in Gaza began with a lie. Reflecting extensive research by independent journalist Max Blumenthal, Freeman refers to the outlandish music festival taking place beside a concentration camp, at which over 1,000 Israelis lost their lives. The people who were killed there were largely killed, it appears, by Hellfire missiles and by other undisciplined fire by Israeli forces. Okay, so let's break this down. So, while it's absolutely possible that the government knew of this attack prior to it, because let's be real, that's not out of the realm of possibility here. Just take a look at 9/11. Can we do that for a moment? By the way, the next time you talk to a teacher who teaches the whole, terrorist attack thing, ask them if they know what nanothermite is. But here's the thing. The Israelis, okay, not the government, the Israelis, they didn't know about the attack. Okay? So let's just hold that, right? But this brings us to the festival and the Hannibal Directive. The directive is a real thing, and it states that if a hostage is taken by terrorists, just knock them both off. Okay, so this went back to something that had happened like 30 years ago when some high-ranking officers were taken hostage. The Israeli government wanted to make sure that the military had the go-ahead without having to wait for a directive. Okay. They didn't want to have to wait for the clear to do something about it. And so in this directive, they were told that they could go ahead and take out both the hostage and the terrorist, not because they want to kill the hostage, okay, but rather because they know what will happen to that hostage if they are alive, okay? So, and unfortunately, there's nothing official in this directive that talks about civilians. There is rhetoric out there that says that the directive, states specifically no civilians. That's not true, because Israel has been so complacent that they haven't needed to utilize this thing, right? So the way that they trained on this directive was strictly military. It had nothing to do with citizens. So there was no formal language in there. So while it's true that the government was warned that maybe there was a high risk of this Nova festival happening so close to the border, and they still gave the approval to go ahead with it, which is dumb, but whatever. They knew about it, and while they did in fact end up taking out some of the hostages along with the terrorists, the bottom line is that the Israeli people did not know about this, okay? And here's the thing. And I know that this sounds rough. But if you guys know me by now, I'm about as subtle as a Mack truck, right? And truth. If this is their policy, I think it's an amazing policy. You want to know why? Why I think that? If I'm taken by one of these terrorist organizations, just take me out. Please, just take me out with that turd, please. Because all you got to do is look at what these guys, who, by the way, wore cameras to document their acts, okay? They did things to people. They did horrible things to people. And you can see that on these cameras that they wore to document their acts. Even after their deaths, these women were raped and mutilated, and some of this stuff was so disturbing that I can't even talk about it. But I saw it and I heard it, and I will never believe that it would be better to remain alive as a hostage. No. Side note, it's important to know this. It wasn't just people in Hamas that did these horrible things. Many, and I mean many, of the Palestinian people participated. Okay? Their own families participated, their wives and their children, literally bred to hate Jews. That's their thing. They hate Jews, but it's not just Jews, it's Christians too, you guys. In fact, it's literally anyone that gets in the way of jihad. So, if the Hannibal Directive happened, which I personally feel like it did, good. Because in my opinion, there are worse things than death. And I kind of feel like maybe some of those people were saved some horrible things that happened to them. But here's the other thing. There's eyewitness testimony, right? And most of the testimonies from people who were there and survived, or they were there and then they were taken as hostages and then they came home. They say that it started with shooting from guns being held by Hamas. So then came, RPGs, which were also held by Hamas. And this was initially intended for the nearby kibbutzim, which is the nearby settlements. And they ended up finding this, this festival was going on. So they decided to add it to the docket. But that's what these people testified, was that it was started by Hamas. So the remark about people being killed largely by Hellfire missiles and other undisciplined gunfire by the Israeli forces doesn't really hold much water for me. And when we watch the videos from Hamas's own footage, that's just not what we see. Okay, we don't see that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying that that when it happened, it was a reaction to the fact that Hamas attacked innocent Israeli citizens. And let's remember this. They came in at 6:30 in the morning. And by the time the military had gotten on scene there, it was 10 o'clock. So let's remember that. And so really what this rhetoric is saying is that Israel started the war, and while they may have known that there was a threat, they didn't fire first. Okay, that's what we need to recognize. They did not start this war, even if they knew about it, even if they knew that it was coming. They didn't start it. Okay, so just so you guys know, too, I'm not justifying any of this in any fashion, in any way. I am not justifying this. I'm just trying to remove all of the partisan that's within the rhetoric so that way we can see the thing for what it is. Okay. Not for what they want us to see or what they want us to believe. So really when it comes down to the bottom line and we remember what's behind the whole thing, right? For what we fight against is not flesh and blood, but the principalities and rulers in high places. The principalities are the entities in the unseen realm that are working behind the rulers in high places. And here it is, right here. They're fulfilling God's will, you guys. And I know this is tough. I'm not going to lie. This is tough. But here we go. Revelation 17:17. You've heard me read this before. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Romans chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. Let every soul be subject unto the high powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore shall resist the power, resist the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. So, and when you go to read 13:3 through 13:7, it looks like it contradicts itself, unless, of course, like when we speak of politicians in governments in general, we know that they're predominantly evil, right? Like, you think of a politician, you're just like, you're a jerk. However, what is being spoken of here is that the thing that is behind these verses is God's will. So let's break that down a smidge, shall we? Remember that the powers that be are ordained by God. All right. And just stick with me for a moment here. For he is God's servant for your good. Put that in your brain. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this, you will also pay taxes, or the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them. Taxes to whom taxes are owed. Revenue to whom revenue is owed. Respect to whom respect is owed. Honor to whom honor is owed. So basically what's happening here is that God is literally saying that not only did he set the authority, but that he is God's servant for our good. Really? No way. Like, I can hear you guys all right now. Brianna, no, make it make sense. Explain to me. Explain to me how Biden is God's servant for my good. Please. Just breathe. Just take a breath in through the nose. Out through the mouth. Yes, there we go. Good. Just follow me here. Okay, you're going to see what I'm talking about. It's actually pretty simple. And hopefully moving forward, you'll be able to have like a peace about all this stuff. Okay? So we have to remember that the book has already been written, you guys. It's already got the ending, right? It's already got the ending. We're in it. We're in the ending. And if we believe it, which I'm hoping that you do, then we have to get to that end, right? So how does that happen? How do we get to the end? There's only one way. There's only one way. And I can tell you that it's not with the help of a whole bunch of really, really nice people who care about us and love us and want us to live in peace and harmony. No, that is not. Because, like, really think about this. If things are wonderful and utopian, like they say that they want things to be, then we have no need for God, right? I mean, let's look at that right there. So they promised this like utopian society, this utopian existence. Why would they do that? Because, and why, they think that we're going to believe them, which many people do. So they just keep on, going on that track, still going down that road. And they do that because if everything's perfect, then there is no need for God. You see, there's no need for God. But we do need God, right? Because of the very fact that the very evil entity that started this war is behind it all. So there really is only one way to get to the end. And God is literally using Satan's own puppets to serve his purpose. Which is a good purpose, right? So he's like, fine, y'all want to play that game? Go ahead. I'm going to let you make your moves, and then I'm going to watch them backfire as I use your pawns for my will and my wonderful glory. I don't think he talks like that, by the way. But we got to remember that. Like Nimrod, right? Nimrod, he was placed. Nero was placed. Herod was placed. Hitler was placed. And so Antichrist will be placed. Literally, it's all to get us to the end of the book. Revelation chapter 22, verse 22. Amen. With a period is how it ends. It could be 21, but chapter 22, verse 21, I don't know. And so, like, that being said, here's the deal, guys. Like, we don't have to like it. We don't have to like it. You don't have to like it. We don't even have to agree with it, but we're human, right? Like, so we have to continuously remind ourselves about these things and knowing what we know, that God places them all. It doesn't say one or two. It doesn't say just kings. It says he places all. So if that's the case, then we have to respect it. We have to respect it. We don't have to agree. We don't have to like it, but we have to respect it. It's kind of like, you don't have to like me and I don't have to like you, but we have to love each other type of a thing, right? It's so easy. It's so easy. We just have to respect it. And I'm not kidding. It's probably the hardest thing to do as a follower. I was being facetious when I said it's easy, but when you're a true follower of Christ, because our flesh wants to literally like throat punch these people, instead we're told that we need to pray for them. We're told that we're not even allowed to like talk bad about Satan. The verse in the Bible where Michael is fighting with Satan over Moses's body, God's like, you better just step off, let him be my issue. And so like jokes, right? So jokes about how like Biden can't figure out who pooped his pants, that kind of stuff. That's all fun and fine and whatever. But because even Jesus made comments about the Pharisees and whatnot, and God himself kind of poked fun at Job. I love it when he was being really super sarcastic and he tells him to basically put on his big boy pants and answer some really tough questions that like at the time he never would have known the answer to, which is awesome. Job 38, gird up now thy loins like a man. For I will demand of thee an answer. And then the next one is this is King James, but I'm going to read it. So basically he says, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare it if thou hast understanding. Job is like, could you imagine Job's face? It would have been a total mic drop with crickets in the background. I can just imagine, Job's like, yeah. But the thing is, right, is that when we legit start bashing someone, we forget our citizenship. And it's not, our citizenship needs to be a citizen of heaven. Okay. And so when we're bashing someone that God has placed, it shows a disrespect for who God put in place. It shows a disrespect for God because he's doing it all in an effort to get us to the end of the book. Like, he wants to bring us home, you guys. Our curfew is up and it is time for dinner. My man has a serious Detroit style deep dish with all them toppings except heartburn. And like the thick dough where the middle is cooked through. You guys know what I'm saying? But like, when you read those passages in Romans, it makes sense now. He's using these people for good, for us, right? Does it make sense? So all that being said, literally anything that we have to complain about with regard to our government or any other government needs to be carefully vented, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't vent. I'm just saying vent carefully. For instance, this listener that had the same concerns that most of us do when it comes to war in general, like usually we're the ones financing it. Like, why, right? And as far as Israel is concerned, we've even given Israel since 1948 like $260 only. It's like, no, that was 260 million. Sorry, I'm just kidding. It's billion. Yeah. $260 billion, you guys. Okay, Brianna, so go ahead and justify it. Well, look, I'm going to be straight. God literally said, those that bless Israel will be blessed, and those that curse Israel will be cursed. And if so, like, we believe the Bible, then we better be blessing Israel regardless of what they're doing. We don't have to agree with them. Again, we don't have to agree with them, but we need to respect God's decisions and remember that he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Have we forgotten? So like in this instance, we really do need to have faith in that, which we don't understand, right? We don't understand that. We got to have faith in it. Like, be pro God, okay? Instead of anything else, just be pro God. Just remember that, it just so happens that God stands with Israel. We have to remember. Have you read the book? Have you read the book? He's taking care of everything else. Why would he stop here at like the climax? Why would he stop here? He ain't stopping. He's got this. And it sucks. Not gonna lie. I hate it. But it wasn't his fault. Satan. Let's remember. Satan. And here's the other thing. It doesn't mean that we have to be mean or like show aggression to anyone that stands with Palestine either. Okay. Even though it irritates the crap out of me because I don't know. The bottom line is that there are many innocent people who are caught in the middle of this thing. Okay. But most of these people who are marching for the Palestinians, they need to check their history, because just like a lot of other people out there that don't realize or understand that they're being used to perpetuate the darkness of the principality that sits behind this whole thing, they generally don't know the history. Like, Palestine was never a nation, ever. But the people who are protesting on behalf of the oppressed Palestinians and their Jewish occupiers, like they don't know that. They don't know the history there. In fact, I think it's safe to say that rarely do we ever get the whole story on anything, let alone have it be taught in school, right? Y'all know my stance on that, but look at like Russia and Ukraine. Does anybody know the truth? Does anybody know the truth about that? Like, I won't really go into this and break this down here, but I'm going to get a bunch of flack for this too, I'm sure. But like, everybody wants to say poor Ukraine. And in all reality, you guys, it should be poor every innocent person. Poor Ukrainian, poor Russian, poor Israeli, poor Palestinian, poor Iranian, poor Lebanese, poor Yemeni, poor everyone. Poor American. Okay? Who literally just wants to live their lives without money-grubbing politicians sticking their hands in everything. Like, the truth is, Iran helped start this war in Ukraine. And I'd be willing to go out on a limb and say that someone probably has a Zelensky family member or two, like, chilling out in a basement somewhere, ready to mail off another finger if he doesn't do what they tell him. And so, like, why do I say this? You probably already know this, but talking about like predictive programming, the dude literally played the role of a teacher who runs for president because he's tired of the corruption in his government, and he wins. Okay. Like, literally the same real life story. It was a sitcom in Ukraine, and it's the real life story when, three quarters of the country voted for Zelensky. So here's the thing, a couple weeks prior to being sworn in, he transferred a smidgen of wealth to some offshore accounts. Plus, and probably more damning would be this. What other reason would the man have than to literally sell every industry in the Ukraine off to BlackRock on a stock exchange? Can someone please make that make sense to me? Because this whole advantage Ukraine thing, it's like it's definitely a cover, I believe. It's called Advantage Ukraine. He rang the bell and he sold off everything to BlackRock and said that it was in an effort to rebuild Ukraine. Like, you go onto the website and it literally says on the first, homepage, it says the greatest opportunity in Europe since World War II. Like, I know this turkey was a comedian, but since when was World War II a great opportunity? Oh, yeah, that's right. War. The U.S. profited for show. And seriously, I'm not kidding when I say there were literally only 3 slides to the whole site with a video of him ringing in the bell on the exchange and giving his little spiel. And then I'm not even joking when I say that maybe 25 words on the whole website. 3 slides, 25 words, maybe 25 words. And like, who says something like that anyway? Why not be like, it's the greatest opportunity since, literally anything else. Literally anything else besides war. But no, it says it right on there. And so a couple of first investors that hopped on board were Microsoft and the parent company for Google, which is Alphabet. And this is what his name is Sundar Pichai, I think. I'm totally butchering that for sure. But he's a CEO of Alphabet, who's the parent company of Google. And this is what he had to say. He says, as we continue to help support Ukraine through our platforms and tools and counter dangerous misinformation online, it's important that we also support Ukrainian businesses working to sustain and grow their economy. Okay. But then there's this. And I'm not going to stay here for very long. I just kind of wanted to let you guys know, like, it's not always what we think. Quote, as we approach 2 years of Ukraine's heroic defense of its territorial integrity, sovereignty, and European future, Ukraine House Davos will serve as a convener for business leaders, policymakers, journalists, and thought leaders. Committed to Ukrainian victory to share insights and collaborate on opportunities that can help forge a free and democratic Ukraine, said Ulyana Kromyak, who's the executive director of Ukraine House in Davos. So here's the thing, like, this place is clearly, obviously stated to the World Economic Forum. They met over the past few days. One would think that since this is the place to go to, quote, convene for business and policymaking and journalism and thought leaders. Can we please just on that for a second? Thought leaders? No. Also, we live in a republic. I just want you guys to understand we live in a republic, not a democracy. So when they use the word democratic, like that's not they're trying to maybe emulate something that, like, no. We are a republic. So anyway, they're related to the World Economic Forum. And so, like, the whole invest with Ukraine thing, this being the convener, you would think that there would be a list of those who have already invested, right? No, there isn't. In fact, not that I spent the usual amount of time that I would in researching something like this, just saying, for all transparency there. I just could not find a list. I could not find a list. But here's what I did find. Do you remember in my last episode, I talked about this organization, CSIS. It is the Center for Strategic and International Studies. The one that, we would think, oh, they're studies, but that's not what they're doing, right? That one? I don't know. Do you remember? So this guy who led the thing for, it wasn't a panel. It was like a tour of this little conference thing, this little conference center. He was the moderator for this Ukraine house in Davos, along with 4 other women. And his name is Daniel F. Rund, and he happens to be the senior vice president and Schreier chair in global analysis for the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And like talking about Ukraine's electrical grid. Okay. So if you remember in the last episode, there was a thing. So they're talking about the electrical grid, and they're talking about how they need to get back on the grid, 100% and all this. And I just started cracking up. I'm just like, seriously, you guys? Like, don't you know that the very people that you're chained to are putting up a cheap and highly efficient nuclear reactor on the moon? Like, do you guys not know that? Is that a secret? That can't be a secret. Like that right there just did it. They're talking about how they have to get Ukraine. They're supporting Ukraine and they're rebuilding Ukraine and they're putting Ukraine on the grid again, literally electrically speaking. They're trying to, quote, reinstate nuclear power and whatever, but like definitely not in a new way. Definitely not in a new way. So not so innovative, Zelensky, is it? Oh no. We have to save the new nuclear stuff for the moon. Oh, Nelly. Like, I just can't. I can't. Anyway, my point there is that nothing is what it seems. Okay. And we just need to like, not only get used to that, you guys, but really expect it. Especially in today's day and age. Jesus said, what did he say? Do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. And so I really feel like from here on out, like the things that we're seeing and the things that we're being told and the lies that we're being fed constantly, it's best to just chill for a minute. And let some of these things play out first, right? Like some of these people who are marching don't even know what from the river to the sea means, which, to be clear, it's Israel. And just listen, here's the thing, you guys. All of the Abrahamic religions agree that Israel was deeded to the Jews. And so therefore, it was Israel before it changed hands so many times until it came to the Ottoman Empire. And, then that regime finally dissolved in the 1920s. And, and there were Jews that stayed there. There were Jews that were still there. I want to say in like 1915, or no, it was 1815. There were 5,000 in a census that were core Jews that were there. And then by the time World War II was over, it was like it was a lot more. It was in the hundreds of thousands, I believe. But there was always a Jewish presence there. And actually, to see the population trend, it's kind of interesting because if you even if you didn't know any of the prophecies in the Bible where God says that he will call them back, you can clearly see a pattern. It's very interesting. Anyway, there's something else that I want to put to bed here. Okay. The other concern that I have heard, not just from like this particular this particular listener, but other listeners and other people just on the internet, is that Israel is committing genocide. So first off, if that's the case, right? I kind of want to know why, how come we're not hearing anything about the Uyghurs in China? Like nobody wants to really talk about that. Or what about the garbage that's going on in Eritrea? Have you even heard of Eritrea? Do you know? Because I didn't know about Eritrea until I think 2 years ago. And what was going on there? They're like murdering Christians, and it's, they've got these jails that are basically, if you have to join the military, and if you don't join the military, like they put you in jail, and you're not allowed to it's horrible. It's horrible. Eritrea. And why haven't we done anything to liberate the people of Darfur in Sudan? You get what I'm saying, right? Like there's a ton of hypocrisy going on here. Israelis committing genocide? Like this country is so tiny and is being confronted on 7 different sides. Okay. So, but so fine. So let's take a look at it. The latest IDF estimates are that 9,000 terrorists have been killed. Hamas Gaza Health Ministry claimed that 23,000 have been killed. But we know that they lie. Okay. They've been caught several times. And I'm not going to say that Israel is innocent. Okay. Because I'm not saying Israel is innocent. Just know that, you guys. But I seem like it just seems to be that they tend to take more responsibility for their actions where Hamas does not. Not to mention the fact that they are a terrorist organization prone not to just any violence, but a really particular evil type of violence in, physical and mental torture, while murder actually seems to be merciful. And they're using their own people, including children, for their own agenda. Okay. But if we give Hamas the benefit of the doubt and went with these numbers, then that means that the civilian to combatant death ratio is approximately 1.5 to 1. And it's even less than that if we include those that were killed by Hamas, let alone those that died of natural causes. Do you understand? So, if we are looking at this from that standpoint, Hamas killing their own people, the civilian to combatant death ratio, 1.5 to 1. Okay. And it's less if we include those that were killed by Hamas, let alone those that died from natural causes. And the United Nations, the ones who, they are just raking Israel over the coals. They say that the global average of the civilian death ratio in urban wartime conflict is 9 to 1. 9 to 1. If that's true, then that actually shows how precise the IDF actually is. Are they perfect? Nope. Not even close. Okay. But we have to remember who makes them up, right? It's the citizens. It's the citizens. There were people here in the United States. They're Jews. They went back to Israel to go fight. Okay. But here's the thing. They might not be perfect, but they are precise. They know that the world is watching and looking for literally any reason to throw a stone. We have to remember who they're fighting. And actually, if you're listening to me from an ally nation of the U.S., we are all fighting this war, you guys. They just don't want to come out and say it yet. Everybody's hanging on the elections, right? Which, by the way, I got a pretty interesting theory from a listener that I would like to present. I'm not going to present it here because it's not the right time, but it's interesting and I like it. But we got to remember who these people are. These people do not care who dies. They don't care. They're nihilistic. They don't care. They don't care for their own lives, let alone anyone else's, right? And they are brainwashed at a very young age to think that if they sacrifice their lives, that they're going to get like this awesome afterlife. Okay. Which I'm going to add is a little creepy. I'm just saying it's a little creepy. But that's for another episode. In fact, actually, I just got confirmation about this. I'm super excited. Literally before I started this man, his name is Abdu Murray, and he's with Embrace the Truth Ministry. And I sent an email. I was not expecting to get a response. Not going to lie, I was not expecting this. But I'm trying to get this man to come and give his testimony. This guy grew up down the street from me, and he grew up a Muslim until one day, like most people who tried to prove the Bible wrong, he read the Bible and he dug deep and to try and prove it wrong. And that's ultimately what led him to Christ. And he worked with Ravi Zacharias, who was one of the best apologetists that I have ever seen, that I know of, which is really cool. Like I said, I was not expecting him to get back with me, let alone so quickly. And they're gonna get back with me in February, which works out better for me because I'm moving, and we're gonna set something up, and he can tell his story, which is a really cool story. So anyways, I'm getting off the subject here, but they're bred this way, and they like the IDF found pamphlets of summer camps for these kids to go and learn jihad summer camps. That's just as bad as the whole Temple of Satan after school program. No, it's worse. It's definitely worse. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, what I'm finding is that there's actually little known by Muslims about Islam itself. And there's a reason. They're told not to ask questions, okay? But it's important to understand that at the heart of this religion is an nihilistic ideology, and most Muslims don't even know about it because many of them don't even understand the very prayers that they're praying. So you have to learn to pray the prayer in Arabic. You're not allowed to pray it in any other language, even if you don't understand it. And it's not only that, but it's steeped in all kinds of lies, like so many lies. And, as I said before, it's for another episode. I won't get into that. But listen, here we are, right? We're asking ourselves what people are thinking. We're like, what is going on? What are you thinking? How can you even, like, you've got to be kidding me? Moments every day. Are you kidding me? Moments every single day. We're saying, how did we get here? Where our president can't figure out who pooped his pants. Like, how did we get here? I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that things are going to get easier. I'm not going to do that. I'm not a sugarcoater. I'm not going to tell you that. I believe that we are we are chosen. You guys were chosen and set on this battlefield. And if I told you that everything, it's going to be okay, everything's going to get better, it will. Okay, it will. But peace is not coming until he comes, until Jesus comes. And he is coming. He is coming. But you guys, things are going to get a little bumpy. Okay. And we just kind of have to we got to buck up. You know what I mean? And understand and Because the Bible doesn't say that we're going to have peace. They're going to call peace for 2 seconds. Again, that goes back to the New World Order. You know, war after war after war, so that way they can finally call peace. And they do it in Daniel. And they do it in Revelation, right in the middle of the 7-year tribulations for the Antichrist. But the thing is that when we take a look around and we see all this garbage, right? We have to practice setting aside our knee-jerk reactions, you know? Like, we need to expect that not only are we probably not getting the real truth from the players involved, but that the very people that we're looking up to, whether it's in our government or our church or the school or whatever will probably let us down, will probably let us down. So that's why I always say, like, don't put a human on a pedestal. They'll fall. We are human. I'm going to disappoint you. Guess what? I'm going to disappoint you. You're probably going to disappoint someone else. I'm sorry if that happens, but we have to understand that we're human. That's where forgiveness comes in, and love, you know. But, you know, even when we're sitting in the middle of like this clear and present diaper blowout, right? That's like, there's literally one guarantee. There's one guarantee that we can die knowing that that we can trust that there is one truth. There is a truth. There is a truth, and that He will reveal the truth to us if we ask for it. Okay, we might not always like it, and it might not always come exactly when we want it to, and we might not understand it, but He will give it to us, you know? And it's truth, which is ultimately, that's life. This is something that we can stand by because it's what He said. He said it. I am the truth, the way, and the life, right? And so I would just say, you know, remember this. Remember, His word can be proven. I challenge anybody. Bring it. Bring it on. I feel like that is literally why I'm here on earth. That and you know, to obviously move around a lot, because apparently I'm a professional box packer. But I promise His word can be proven. And in it, He sticks up for us. He sticks up for us. And He sticks up for Israel. So why don't we do the same? Why don't we do the same for Him and stick up for Him, even when it's not easy? Like, don't leave Him out in the cold. He wants to eat, dude. He still ate. You guys, He ate after the resurrection, which makes me very happy, by the way, that we'll get to eat some food. But I think He's hungry. I think He's hungry, and He's outside, and He's knocking on that door. So you know what to do. Go open up the door, get some chow. And maybe He even brought some ranch, some of that good ranch from Jet's Pizza. If you guys don't know about Jet's Pizza, I'm sorry. But you know what I'm saying. It's time, you guys. It's time. Gotta get bold. Gotta get bold. All right, y'all. That's it for today. Per usual. Thanks for joining me. I know that this was some hard stuff. But when we take it to the Bible, we're able to actually make sense of it eventually, right? I think the next episode I'm going to do is probably going to be on the rapture. That's going to be a fun one. And I have another guy coming on. He's going to give us his story, and that's going to be a good one. They're all going to be good. I'm just following God's lead. God's lead told me to talk about this one today, so here you go. I hope that you guys really do have a little bit more peace about understanding what's going on out there and just understanding that God's in control of it. He knows what He's doing. Even when we don't, thank God for that. Legit, right? Literally. Your scripture for today is Galatians chapter 6, verses 6 through 10. Yeah, I'm stepping it up on you guys. You're graduating. You're graduating. And I think that you'll find comfort in that. because he has our vengeance. Okay, he has our vengeance. So until next time, you guys, this is Brianna signing off, saying God bless.